there he is.
Hey, I
Hello.
just sent you a message. Cool. So the goal for today is to take a look at the process docs or the process automation that we want to do for open source, and just kind of like get things consolidated and actually define some kind of a real scope for it. So the intention here is to start with this issue here. I want to, let's make that a little bit easier to see. So I want to run through this one. I want to find all the duplicates that we were looking at earlier that showed like these are the, it was like 3 or 4 issues that all are tracking the same work. So get those consolidated in, make sure that we've got the right amount of information. And then let's see. Kind of decide what our scope is going to be for this. I want to make sure that we've got an actual scope defined, so that we can actually know what we're working toward. Split that idea of done up into deliverables with owners, which at the moment are going to be you and me, Marissa. And then the intention after that is to leave with a clear definition of the scope and what we're attempting to write issues for. So what I want to talk today is like the what and the who. So define like broad level, high level scope, and then assign ownership. I don't want to do actual like individual issue writing and planning, because I think that'll just be easier to do individually as opposed to in a group call. So let's start by just kind of reviewing what we've got. At the current moment, we have some limited research that's been done to kind of look at the workflows that people are following in open source, and we want to turn that research into actual like tangible things that we can use. So the goals from my initial definition here were, or I don't know if I actually wrote this. We want a mean time to initial response. We want to drop that down. Actually, we should edit this as we're going because there's not actually goals in here, is there?
Yeah, so I think that dropping the mean time is a really good metric. I'm curious to know if you have a time drop that you're hoping to accomplish.
Yeah, so what we want is we define these metrics. Our 75th percentile. So if we're talking in statistics, we want the 75th percentile to be 1 day is the goal for any response to an issue, because that would be 5 days a week within 24 hours. We want the 90th percentile to be 72 hours because that would be including weekends. And that's what Sam told me, and I'm just choosing to trust him.
So I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Yeah, so when we look at the averages, we want the 75th percentile average to be 24 hours.
Yeah.
And we want the 90th percentile average to be 72 hours.
Okay.
Because I guess when you look at statistics and averages, that would mean that we're answering during the weekdays. Everybody gets responded to like within about a day. And over the weekends, people can, we don't expect anybody to work over the weekends. So
I'm listing this I'm just taking notes right now. I know you're going to put that in, but I wrote it so that you have it.
Yeah, I feel like we should just capture these in this issue, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
So 75th percentile, about 24 hours, and 90th percentile, we want to be about 72 hours. Time to resolution, I don't really know what this is right now. Okay. And I don't know that that's really something that we want to be too prescriptive on, because we don't want to make this something that people feel an urge to like close issues before they're ready to close. Right. So I would almost argue that we shouldn't be tracking this.
I would agree with that. And what I would want to consider, and I don't know if we can add this right now, but I think that it's important before you start to track resolution, you track quality. So how do we know that what we're doing is the right thing? And then from there, like, okay, that's the best that it can be. And then we start to track resolution.
Okay.
We've done that when we've been able to do that in the past for different things. It just helps to keep the quality up and makes that.
Can you say that one more time? Like,
yeah. So, and I don't know how we would do it at this point, but if there's a way to put in a metric for the quality of issue completion.
okay.
And I can do some work there to dig around and see. I'm happy to take that on. I just think that that's important to think about.
Okay. So then for here, I just don't think we should do this. I think this is too hard to track. May incentivize the wrong things.
Yeah, I think that that could be a stretch goal, but only after we've kind of set in place like what must be true for an issue to be closed with quality. What do you think, McCall?
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's also this time to resolution only be valuable if we could group this by issue types.
Yes.
OSS repository have all kinds of issues. There are bug reports or feature requests or any maintenance tasks that all of which, if we all put those stuff together, the time to resolution doesn't give us any real value.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Good point. Yeah.
And so then this other here, so I guess the actual thing we want to do is we want to make these into
Actions.
action steps. And so we want to produce a cumulative flow diagram. And so the cumulative flow diagram we can look at below a little bit. I put together these kind of flow charts for things like pull request reviews, stale issues, and bug reproductions. So I think the overall goal would be, can we create a flow chart that would allow almost anybody, regardless of their familiarity with the project, to step into open source and at least as like a first touch maintenance, could they get the issues into the right bucket so that the right people are reviewing them? Because one of our big targets here is we want like the community at large, more and more people are getting access to the repo. And if we give the right instructions, if we give the right workflows, then anybody who's got some spare time could be jumping in and like labeling things properly, doing the right escalations, verifying reproductions, things like that. And that's going to dovetail a little bit with the community swag tiers and stuff like that. We'll have to figure out how do we also track maintenance work, because those won't be tracked as PRs. But so that's another question.
So I think that that's totally doable. I think that maybe the first thing to tackle there then is, I think if there are good parameters set in place, then that it's easy to have people know what they need to do on their next step. I think the biggest issue is going to be what you would consider like the onboarding or surfacing of that information in a way that is easy to understand and easy to either refer to, like reference later, or to start using immediately. So those would be the things I think we need to make sure are in place first, the visibility and the way that we're going to make sure that people can access it. But I agree with that. I think that that's a really good idea.
Okay. And I would agree with that all the way. So, what do we like? What do we want to say are like success statements? So I kind of feel like we want to just group these into general things that we want to be true. So from my standpoint, we'll know this epic is a success if someone with no familiarity with the repo or Gatsby in general could follow our checklist to put new issues into the right channels.
Does that include labeling or no?
Yeah, I think I think the channels, like, this is something that we're going to have to define is
Sure.
like, are the buckets defined? Are we requiring people to use ZenHub for this? Are we going to do it through GitHub labels? Do we want one of our automations to be that when you apply a label, we will move it to the right place in ZenHub?
That would be cool if we could.
I mean, we can do anything we want with Peril. We just have to build it, right? So
I
it's defining
would-
where do we draw the line between software we're going to develop versus processes that people can step through manually.
I mean, I think that a lot of that question is for Michal, just because obviously he's going to be touching it day to day. But my thought there is if we can kind of lower that barrier where they just have to label, it immediately makes it easier, right? If it just like, oh, I did the label and then it does the thing.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to point out that we, if possible, if we could limit our usage of ZenHub features for OSS maintenance, because this requiring to use ZenHub increases barrier of entry for people who would like to contribute in any sense. So if we could get away without using ZenHub features for that, so people can use existing native GitHub tools to actually get around our repo, our issues, and pull requests, that would be great.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I think I think that ZenHub should still be used, but I think that it should be used as an organizational tool, not as an operational tool.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, so then how do we want to actually capture that? Let's see.
I think that would just be instead of a statement around what someone can do, I would just list that as one of that to me is more of a parameter. Like any process that we set up or any automation that we set up, things are going to have to be done. It's going to have to be okay that they're put in like native GitHub and pulled over. That's just like a parameter that we've got to set, I think.
Okay, so we can just make that a goal. Like the contributors need to be able to manage issues without installing GitHub.
Yeah.
Or without installing ZenHub, sorry.
ZenHub, yeah.
What else needs to be true for this to be done? Like, so one of the things that I was thinking is contributors need to be able to see, to quickly open filtered views of different issue buckets. So, for example, if somebody comes in, we want to be able to see, if you're a first-time contributor, go look for good first issues.
Okay.
If you're an experienced...
Can you put that example in? Sorry, I think that's helpful. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is like we talked a little bit about kind of the issue prep, because one of the things that we want to be able to do is we want to get better at making our issues accessible to more casual contributors, because a lot of our stuff now they're like notes that make sense if you have all the context. What they're not, and every time that we take the time to put that context into the issue, like here's the issue, here's roughly where that happens in the source code, and here's what would need to change to make that true. somebody from the community almost always jumps in and picks that up and is like super happy about it. So if we can make it so that our flow leads the core maintainers more toward that, like instead of saying I will get to that issue eventually, working on getting those issues teed up so that later you can just go on a tear and close them all down. But hopefully in the meantime, somebody from the community is going to be like, oh, I get that one and I know what to do because it's explained well. So I'm going to jump in and solve that problem.
So we'd originally talked about doing an issue template. Then there was talk that that barrier to entry was too high. I neither agree nor disagree. I'm not sure if there's a way that we could make it just have like groups of information that have to be somewhat filled out before the issue can be put in.
So it seems to me that the only way that those issues could be created is with review from somebody who's more central to the team. Yeah. So this would be kind of a shift in the way that Mikhail, or maybe not Mikhail, or maybe it's like Mike would work, is when issues come in, instead of putting them into a personal backlog and like tackling the harder issues, they would get escalated as like needs Inc. team review or needs core maintainer review. And the core maintainers would then write out the context, remove the needs core maintainer review status, and add like help wanted and potentially a level of difficulty. So if it was like, this is a good first issue, or, you know, this is a good issue for somebody who is medium familiar with the code base, this should take a day, this is going to be hard, that kind of thing. Because somebody like Mikhail is going to have that information, whereas I won't.
Sure. What do you think about that, Mikhail? Or is that?
Yeah. I think it's hard to give opinion without trying this. But yeah, I think this sounds good. This definitely will put more stuff. Well, initially it will put more work on us, but the promise is that we, after this initial works, community can come in and finish the actual coding part or something like that. So,
but do you think that is an option that would be sustainable? Like, is it something that would require some initial ramp up time and then would be something sustainable that would be easy to continue to do? Or
I think we need to. I hate to say it, but I think we need to test it, and I also think that this won't apply to every kind of task we create.
Yeah.
Because some things have so many moving parts in Gatsby that trying to write out everything that potentially need to be touched on in code will take maybe longer than actually doing actual coding stuff.
Yeah, and I actually kind of think that's a good thing, because what this would help us do is it would help us separate issues that should be your focus or Kyle's focus or Mike's focus because they're big and complex and have a lot of moving parts, versus things that would be a great fit for somebody who wants to maintain Gatsby but doesn't have time to learn the entire code base. So that review would be a great decision point for you as a core maintainer to say, okay, this is actually going to be like a half day's worth of work and it touches 2 files. So instead of doing that work, I'm going to write it up and put it back in the queue, and then I'll move on to the next issue. And that issue is going to be, multiple touches, lots and lots of things that are going to be changed. So that one makes sense for me to do. And then you would claim it. And you see what I'm saying? Like maybe that's the way to...
I mean, yes. I like the idea. Oh, sorry, Mikhail, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Yes, we actually already do it like that. So any like non-critical issues that we feel like contributors can take on, we already leave pointers to the code where this can be fixed or feature can be added. So we already do that, maybe not consistently. Maybe we can be better at that.
And is the consistency a thing because there's of time, or like what's getting in the way of consistency?
Probably because it's not formalized. It's just in informal thing we do.
Okay. So I think that's doable to try. I agree with you, McCall. We kind of have to test it and see, but maybe if we formalize it a little bit, then that's an easy way to start testing it and see how it works.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a few questions that I think we can answer that will help define our first test. Basically, when we're talking about core maintainers having a review period, so the way that I look at this is that if a bug comes through and that bug gets verified, or like a feature request comes through and it's something that we think is important, but it's not on our critical roadmap, then it could be reviewed. So we could add like a status needs core maintainer review. The core maintainers would look at it, and then this would be the core maintainers make it after it gets a needs core maintainer review label. Mm-hmm. Then we'd have to define what that criteria is, and maybe that criteria is it's something that is valid, and maybe it's like maybe it could be done as a like a level of effort thing or a critical path thing, maybe some combination thereof. And so this could be like maybe done. Somebody actually just commented in Twitch that it could be done as part of issue grooming. So as you do your open source issue grooming meetings, you could decide which ones are going to be prioritized for internal work versus ones that would be done or turned over to the community. And
I think that's a good way.
Sorry, let me run through the rest of this thought, and then I'll give it back to you. If it gets turned back over to the community, then we would just need a way to label things appropriately so that people who were in the community would be able to link to a filtered list of issues that have been turned back over. Mm-hmm. So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think that reviewing them in those meetings is a good way to start, especially if we're going to have kind of a bare bones process to begin with. Then there's a way for people to go through it together and make those decisions, as long as it's and there's a little bit of an accountability check to make sure that it happens too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So where would that happen?
In the third bullet, what is the criteria? So I think that those would be reviewed in meetings, and it would start that way, and that way we can kind of hone in on what criteria is needed. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, I think that would make sense. And then when an issue gets turned over to the community, we would want to do labeling, and that labeling would be like status, level of effort, maybe like difficulty, and and maybe this is too much information.
I'm always a big fan, and I don't know if this is possible, but I'm a big fan of doing, if we're going to do level of effort and difficulty, to do impact as well, because it helps us make sure that we're doing the right things at the right times.
So I almost feel like anything that would be put back to the community is something that we're basically saying is not on the critical roadmap.
Okay.
Because if we're saying like, okay, so Gatsby needs to hit like these critical things, it's not fair of us to put volunteers on deadlines. Sure. So
then just get rid of that, because then it won't matter.
Yeah, I think anything that would be done as by a volunteer, we should say is not on our critical roadmap, just because otherwise we're putting unfair expectations on volunteers.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, so what else needs to be true here? So contributors need to be able to quickly open filtered views of different issue buckets. What else would we need? Like, is there anything else that needs to be true for this to be a success? should we talk about automation at all, or is automation going to be kind of a follow-on from this?
So I think that in terms of the automation stuff, I think we can kind of try it in parallel with doing these things, because that's going to take a few rounds of trying to get right, I think. So I do think it should be part of this process. And I do think that there's some kind of easier automation, I shouldn't say easy, but like first pass automations that we could put into place along with this, see what the effect is, and then start to change them from there.
Okay, so things that we should automate. I think the stale bot is kind of a no.
Really good. And I have that doc that when we talked about this earlier, let me try and find it because I think I put that in there.
Yeah, let me.
Hold on. No, it's okay. Go back to your thing.
I have a peril issue that's in here somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's going to pull up the boards. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So I have epics, show epic side HUD subtasks. Let's find everything assigned to me and do all. Okay. And so I want peril automations. And so the current peril automations that we've picked up, there's like some little things that just take extra time. So for example, validating YAML, writing a little schema for any new additions to YAML files for like the site showcase or the creator showcase, just to make sure that people have supplied the right things in pull requests so that the maintainers don't have to do that. Like that's an easy thing to automate. So that one seems like maybe it's a good first track.
There was that merge on green that Mike talked about before. It's not issue number 25.
Okay, so let me just start. Oh shit, wrong button. Let me get rid of. Oh my god, I just quit the whole app. Okay, please hold. Oh, I apparently got the new Chrome. Oh, this sucks. Okay.
There you go then.
Adventure, everybody. Okay, so what I meant to do was
Copy that.
got that, close that, and then we. Oh no!
Oh no!
All of the notes are gone. No, they're not. Haha. Okay, saving. Jesus Christ. Okay. Wow, that was terrible. I am not that. All right, panicking a little bit. Panic over. Okay, so we've saved the work. Thank you, Google Chrome, for saving me from myself. So we want to do the peril automation. The one that I just copied a link for was
The peril YAML.
YAML validation. We want to do what else?
Do you want to try the merge on green?
So the merge on green thing, I think, is how much of a help would that be for you, Mikhail?
This is only useful for new issues that new pull requests that have some like minor changes or like content changes, and we just approve them and skip merging because tests aren't passing.
So this wouldn't be particularly useful until we kind of harden up the continuous integration.
Yeah, I feel like work and time put into this versus the gains from it might not be that great, because if we don't merge that PR in this particular run, we will do another run 2 hours later. So
okay. Okay, so we can probably leave that one out for now then. So then let's see. Issue templates. So the validation on that is there were a couple things that came up that just seemed like they might be hard. First is we're not going to put in natural language processing, right? So that means that the issue templates are going to be somewhat prescriptive. And that would mean that if somebody, like, even if they supplied the information, if they were to get the formatting wrong, we would send them a message that was like, you're missing critical information. There are a couple things that we can validate, like envinfo. I can validate that. I can look for patterns that would show, like, okay, the Gatsby version is in here. The Node version is in here, something like that. Those are doable. The like validating whether or not a reproduction is there. So it could be a reproduction repo. It could be a link to something like Code Sandbox or Replit, or it could also be a list of steps or screenshots. I'm not quite sure how to validate that well.
Do we, McCall, for those validations, does it need to be a certain thing or?
Well, if possible, we definitely prefer if there is reproduction repository. The way if we can just clone a reproduction repository and that's all we need to start handling the issue. That's preferred. And also, this is issues that have reproduction repositories tend to get faster fixes or stuff like that.
So should I then? I can just do a check and just put a warning, like not fail it or anything, but just put a warning that says like, hey, you didn't post a repo. Like, could you post a link to a reproduction repo? And then they can reply and say like, I can't because of this, and then that would be fine.
Yeah, that's I guess fine.
I think that's a start at the very least, you know?
Yeah, yeah, okay. I mean, my intention here is to make your life easier, Mikhail. So, whatever you think is going to make the most sense is going to be the thing that we want to do. What I don't want to do is I don't want to put checks in place that are going to create more admin work for you, because there's like false positives and stuff like that. So, that's kind of where I'm at with that. So is there anything else in issues that's useful for you to validate?
Well, I think for the first phase, that's probably more than enough.
Okay.
I don't think we should create a big chunk of work for the initial rollout.
Okay. Automatically connecting PRs to the issues they close. That one seems like pretty low-hanging fruit. It's a single call to the ZenHub API, and then it gives us that easier view of like, here's you like see the issue and the PR as one unit as in the card view. How useful would that be to you?
We didn't. We used ZenHub for the most of the V2 work. We didn't yet use ZenHub for the daily OSS management. So we would need to start using ZenHub for that, so that the automatic linking would be useful. So yeah, it would be useful, but hard to tell right now.
Okay, so that one could be like a stretch goal, like.
Yeah, because usually when we are going through the pull requests, we are opening pull request view and not board.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think if we've got a couple to start with, that's at least.
I mean, this was the one. Copy link address. And then we also had, where was it? Here. For this one. And what else is in here? Merge on green, we decided didn't matter. Auto assigning PRs to the person who opened it. I don't even know if that's possible, because in most cases the org, you can only assign to people who are in the org. So that would be useful in the sense that, like, for somebody who was a Gatsby member, like a maintainer, We can auto assign PRs to them just to help them keep track of stuff they've opened, but it wouldn't work for like a first time contributor or somebody who didn't accept the org invite.
Yeah, I'm also not sure of the what value that this actually brings, assigning PR to the author. What's the actual value from that?
Filtering, basically, so that we can see what people have done and so that they can see what they've done, especially if, like, for example, that might be more useful internally, to be completely honest, because a lot of the stuff that we open stays open for a long time because it's like a work in progress or it's a PR that like isn't super high priority. So maybe that one doesn't matter. Blog authors have required info. That actually seems to me like a duplicate of the YAML validation, right? Or actually it's not, because that one you also have to add a photo and something else. Is there anything else?
No, there's I think authors YAML and there is just path to the photo. So yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna add this as like a possible duplicate, and then I'll go clean this up later. So for the YAML, we want to.
I guess like actual markdown where we specify author, the author should be in this author's YAML, so there is some extra validation.
Okay. Enforcing conventional commits format in PR titles. This one's cool, but well, okay. So what it would be is that this would post a message for like on the PR that it would like have a failing check as to whether or not the issue follows the conventional commit format. So that would be a reminder to whoever's merging the commit that we need to add the conventional commit format before merging, which would then make Lerna changelogs work.
Yeah, I would think there are already like ready-made solutions for that.
There are.
Yeah.
This is something that I think you might have found. It was a bot that you just install on the repo. This one would just be like, should we turn that on?
If this just adds another line in the checks box on the GitHub, it would be worth to give it a try.
Okay.
To see.
Yeah. Let's give it a try then. So we're going to add.
So we essentially added all the issues there.
Well, we didn't add all of them actually. We left out quite a bit.
There's a stalebot issue in that original one too, I think.
Yeah, there are 2 stalebot issues, so I should probably get them both.
Actually, for the conventional commits, we would need to do some tests if this actually works with this multi-repo stuff. If this actually properly figure out which packages should have commit messages and stuff like that.
So the question is it actually going to apply the changelogs to the appropriate packages?
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, I guess what we could do is we can just turn it on and try it, and if it works the way that we expect it to work, great. And if it doesn't, then it's a cheap experiment because all we had to do was turn on a bot.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, let's just give it a shot because it'll take us very little time to actually try it. Let's see if there's anything else that matters in here. Updates to the site showcase would be a duplicate of the YAML. So that's site showcase is here. Auto close stale issues. Okay. I must have created 1,000 of these. No, go away. closed, stale questions that, yep, okay. Definitely created 1,000 of these. And let's see what else. Ready for review tag for pull request. So this would just be like anytime. Wait, how would that even be useful? That seems like it wouldn't be useful. Like a PR by nature is ready for review.
Well, we actually use a work in progress label for requests that are in progress. If someone, because people sometimes do start pull requests and hit roadblocks or whatever, and just want like initial feedback on them. So we sometimes use. I'm not sure this actually.
So what Sam is proposing here is that any PR that's submitted without a like a work in progress tag in the title would be labeled with ready for review, so that you could get a filtered view of just PRs that are ready for review. You could
we
also
actually
do a filtered view of anything not tagged with work in progress.
Yeah, I think this adds another item work that we don't really need.
Okay. So yeah, let me assign that to myself.
Yeah, if you actually could check like pull requests on our repository, you will see that there are at least 2 pull requests with work in progress label.
Okay. So then what we would want to look at is, it would be like what, minus label? Is it working?
It is.
Is it an actual label, or is it
Status
just
work in
something?
progress. So what you would want to be able to do is say, show me just the stuff that's not work in progress, or, for example, show me just the stuff that is work in progress. And that's okay. I think that's totally fine.
Yeah, I would say so too.
So we can make a filter view, because all we're really going to be doing is taking these types of filters and making a dashboard full of links for them, so that people can very easily like find, hey, these are the issues that will take a low level of effort that are ready for me to work on.
So you are going to do one that says needs review, or?
I don't think we do. I don't.
So then that just needs to be communicated so that people know that, right? Like, if it doesn't have that work in progress label, then it is actionable.
Yeah. We should probably have this documented somewhere.
Yeah.
And so when you say documented, you mean just like in the process workflow, if you have a.
Well, this could also be in pull request template. Just a comment that if this is work in progress and it's not ready for review, just apply work in progress label.
Or even just prefix it with work in progress, and then we could, because I don't think, you can't label if you're not part of the org. So if they prefix with WIP, then we can pull that out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So actually then I'll leave this, and we will just put that in the stretch goals. Probably we won't get to it this round, but title contains work in progress. Okay.
Can we actually do create pull request filter to check if it has work in progress prefix? Because if we have, then even this label would be unnecessary, and we could just.
That's a great question. search by the title. Warning in title. So let's try this.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yep. So we don't really need to do that anyway. So let's. Oops. Okay. Let me save that real quick just in case I hit any more buttons. And let's also make sure that this worked the way I expected it to. Yes. Okay. Taking a look then. Anything else in here that we need? We ready for review, delete branches after merge. That's nice, but not super important. Verify that starters and sites don't go in the wrong YAML file. That one, I think that's a great idea. I'm going to put it under this YAML thing. But I don't know how we could do it. I guess it would be a validation thing, but honestly, it would just be like, hey, I detected the word starter. So maybe this is not a starter, or maybe
That
this is not a
also
site.
maybe comes up on review meetings. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's just a kind of a quality check to make sure the right things are in the right places.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that it would be possible to check for that.
Okay. Yeah. And then there are a handful of other things. Let's see. That's everything there. Posting relevant docs and support channels. I actually love this idea. I don't know if it's going to be really possible in the first phase. I almost feel like what we should be doing is whenever we have an issue where you post a relevant doc or example or whatever, we should have a doc that we add those, like just say this issue had a support answer. And then over time, as we start to see some of the ones that are repeated, then we can target those for like initial automations. But if we do it otherwise, we're just going to be kind of taking wild guesses on what the support issues would be.
Yeah, I think creating a library is a good idea.
Okay.
So.
What else do we need to do in the?
Yeah, I also feel like maybe not less work, but better thing to focus on would be like discoverability of this docs we link.
Yeah.
If people can find them, then probably it's better to work on making sure that people find them before they open issues.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
And that to me is.
Wait, so sorry, Mikhail, did you have a suggestion on where this gets kept?
No. It's just about this bots on linking to docs based on keywords. We should probably first step would be making sure that docs are discoverable by those keywords that people use.
That's a really good
Yeah.
point. Okay, so that's worth checking out for sure.
So we're on our final 9 minutes.
Yes.
So I think that we still need to decide what done looks like, or have we figured out all of that now?
So to me, let's see. Contributions get lost. Yep. Dozens of duplicate issues appear. Lost contributors who are angry about things not getting updated or getting lost in the shuffle. So I think
how will we know? Yeah, how will we
so
know?
what we need to know is someone with no familiarity can jump in and do things in the way that we've decided is the right process. I think that's a good goal. Contributors don't need to install ZenHub, so that gives us some constraints. Contributors need to be able to quickly open filtered views of different issue buckets. That's going to be a deliverable. And then we need additional documentation that clearly explains where to find all of the artifacts created in this issue, how to use them, and where to go for help. Anything else that would need to be true for that?
No, I think that's all for that. But then, just to confirm that we're all on the same page, when those 4 bullets are completed, that's how we know the epic is done.
Yes.
Okay.
And so in terms of, we don't have any automations. Initial automations are in place, tested, and working as expected. So from this, like, I own this. I think that Marissa will own this. And we may pull in, like, I can help, Amberly can help. We'll be able to probably get some assistance from, like, the OSS core maintenance team as needed, especially if we need clarity on certain things. The workflow, that one's going to be kind of a joint effort. To me, it feels like this is probably a process thing that Marissa should own.
Yeah, I'm happy to put it into Whimsical so that we can have it listed. And then I think that the thing I'm going to need help with is making sure, and this will probably be really McCall, is just making sure that it's in a place where people can actually see it and it's useful for them.
Okay.
They're going to know that better than me, obviously.
Okay. And then the other one that we're going to need is we need to figure out what the process is. Let's see. So, yeah, this is actually something that we need to do. Core maintainers need a process to identify and what's the right way to sum this up? What I'm talking about is the process by which in the backlog grooming meetings, Mikhail would spot an issue that should be worked on by the community and flag it for, like, I'm going to add context to this, add the context, and then put it into one of the buckets that will show up in the filtered list. So, like,
So they just need a process to identify and label issues correctly in their maintainer meetings.
And so this one, I think the process is going to be Marissa, but I imagine this is going to involve, like, a lot of just, like, interviewing core maintainers to talk about how to do that. Okay.
Yeah, I would think we would talk to the maintainers, and then Michal and I can do a first pass at what that process would look like and give it to Michal, and then we can iterate from there.
Okay. So in looking at these, the cumulative flow diagram. So the first steps, Marissa's going to build a flow chart. I took a first crack at what those steps are, so you can take that and build it into a flow chart. This is a constraint, not a deliverable.
Yeah.
This one is going to be a deliverable. So I would say that our first deliverable for this would just be a page in the docs with the right filtered links. So where is that at? Here.
I don't know if you want to separate those into constraints and deliverables, if that's easier.
I can do that. I can do that after this. I'm gonna, like, you and I both need to sit down and create issues for everything and, like, hook them into this epic. The other thing that we didn't do in this meeting that I don't think we have time for now is we needed to close all the duplicates. So I will just do that as a follow-up. I have another meeting starting in a minute here, but so a page in the docs with links to various GitHub filters. Okay. So then we've got a filtered view that can be a page in the docs. I own that. Additional documentation, which is going to be going into the contributing docs to help people discover all of this and figure out how to get involved, et cetera, et cetera. I will get the initial automations in place. Most likely I will pull other people in to help do that. And then the core maintainer process is going to be owned by Marissa, and that'll be done by interviewing core maintainers. We may discover a few things, but so basically I'd like to get on a weekly cadence to discuss this and just talk about like how things are going and whether or not the assumptions that we made in this meeting are still true. From there, let's see. But yeah, so yeah. Sorry, I got distracted because somebody was in the chat and I lost my train of thought.
Set up a weekly meeting.
Yeah, set up a weekly meeting, and then we will. So weekly meeting. By the next weekly meeting, Marissa, you and I need to have created issues that will track all the different things we're going to do. Do you want to also do like a Gantt chart for this, just to keep us honest?
I can, yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but I guess do you want to do whatever you want to do in terms of project management to keep us honest and on track? Because I've
I don't see this as a Gantt chart, more as like just breaking out all of these sections in an agenda that we can. So that agenda you have today, we can just move these deliverables into that agenda, and that way we can track them. Would be a suggestion. I don't think we need a Gantt chart because we're not time boxing this into a specific amount of time. You know, we have things that we need to hit and finish in order for the epic to be completed. So
okay, so things to be done. I'm going to set up a weekly meeting. I
can set up the agenda if you want.
Project tracking. I'm going to, so both of us, we need to create issues for the work we scoped out. What else needs to happen by the next meeting?
I think that's it. I think that's where we should start, because we're going to have to discuss how we're going to do everything in the next meeting.
Okay, cool. So I think then that's a good stopping point. So I'll schedule the next meeting. How did you feel about streaming this? Are you comfortable with continuing to stream these as we go?
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
And the call is silently agreeing.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah, I actually forgot about the streaming part.
Okay, cool. So then we will, let's do it. We're gonna schedule the next meeting. We will stream that as well, and we'll reconvene in about a week with all of these different things done.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you. Bye, McCall.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.